You've done everything right. You've been kind, you've been patient, you've been open, and yet somehow you keep ending up in the same situation. Different man, same story. Different face, same feeling. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice whispers, "Is it me?" Here's what nobody tells you. It probably is, but not in the way you think. The reason you keep attracting emotionally unavailable men, inconsistent men, men who are charming at first and cold later, it has almost nothing to do with luck, your looks, or the type of men out there. It has everything to do with a pattern that was wired into you before you were old enough to choose it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand that pattern completely, and you'll know exactly what to do about it. Welcome back to my channel, where we talk about the things most people think but never say out loud. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Let's get into it. Here's the thing about love and attraction that most people never fully grasp. You don't choose who you're drawn to based on logic. You choose based on familiarity. And familiarity, for better or worse, is shaped in childhood. Think about the last time you met someone and felt that instant pull, that magnetic, "I don't know why, but I need to be around this person" feeling. That feeling has a name in psychology. It's called emotional resonance. And it doesn't just happen randomly. It happens when someone matches a relational pattern you already know. Researchers at the University of Illinois found that people consistently rate emotionally familiar relationship patterns as more comfortable, even when those patterns are objectively unhealthy. Your nervous system literally interprets familiarity as safety. So if you grew up with a parent who was inconsistent, loving one moment, withdrawing the next, inconsistency doesn't feel like a red flag to you. It feels like home. This is the foundation of attachment theory, developed by psychologist John Bowlby in the 1950s and expanded by Mary Ainsworth, and it explains more about your love life than you might be ready to hear. So let's break this down, starting with number 1. You were probably never taught about attachment styles in school, but you have one. Everyone does. It formed in your earliest relationships, specifically with your primary caregivers, and it became your internal blueprint for every romantic relationship that followed. There are 4 main styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant, sometimes called disorganized. A secure person believes they're worthy of love and that love is safe. An anxious person craves closeness, but is constantly afraid of losing it. An avoidant person values independence so highly, they unconsciously push intimacy away. And a fearful avoidant person desperately wants love, but is terrified of it at the same time. The critical insight here is that your attachment style doesn't just affect how you behave in relationships, it determines who feels attractive to you in the first place. If you have an anxious attachment style, avoidant men don't just frustrate you, they actually activate you. The hot and cold cycle triggers your nervous system in a way that feels like chemistry, when actually it's anxiety being mistaken for attraction. Here's what most people don't tell you about this. You can change your attachment style. It takes work, but it's one of the most important investments you can make in your future. And number 2 explains exactly why this matters so much right now. If you've ever been in a relationship where you were always the one reaching out, always the one anxious about where things stood, always the one feeling like you were just a little bit too much, you've been in this trap. The anxious-avoidant dynamic is the most common relationship pattern in therapy offices worldwide. An anxious attacher and an avoidant attacher are drawn to each other like magnets, and they destroy each other in the most exquisite, confusing way possible. The anxious person pursues, the avoidant withdraws. The pursuit increases, the withdrawal deepens. Both people end up feeling misunderstood, exhausted, and fundamentally unlovable. Here's the psychology. Avoidant men typically had caregivers who were emotionally unavailable or who made them feel that needing love was a burden. So they learned to self-soothe, to not need people, to mistake walls for strength. When an anxious woman pursues them, it confirms their deep belief that closeness equals loss of self. So they retreat further. And the more they retreat, the more certain the anxious woman becomes that she must be fundamentally unworthy. If this resonates with you, this is the most important thing you'll hear today. The chase you feel addicted to is not love. It is anxiety. Real love feels steady, not electric. Safe, not terrifying. And number 3 will show you exactly how to start telling the difference. Picture this. You go on a date with a guy who is warm, present, genuinely interested. He texts when he says he will. He makes plans and follows through. He doesn't play games. And you feel nothing. It's boring. It feels too easy. Now picture a different man. Charming, magnetic, a little unpredictable. He texts you for 3 days straight and then goes quiet for a week. And you are obsessed. You can't stop thinking about him. This is neuroscience, not weakness. When you're experiencing uncertainty and intermittent reinforcement, the pattern of sometimes getting the reward and sometimes not, your brain releases more dopamine in anticipation of the reward than it would if the reward were consistent. This is the same mechanism behind slot machines and social media. Inconsistency is biologically addictive. The stable, available man doesn't trigger this dopamine spike not because he's wrong for you, but because your nervous system hasn't been trained to recognize consistent love as exciting. Studies in behavioral psychology call this the partial reinforcement extinction effect. And it explains why you hold on longer in unhealthy relationships than in healthy ones. You've been conditioned to work for love, and that conditioning masquerades as passion. This is where it gets really interesting, because once you understand this, you can start to consciously rewire it. And that's exactly what number 4 is about. You know that feeling when you meet someone and you just know? That instant sense of connection, like you've known this person before? Sometimes that's genuine resonance. But sometimes, and this is the part nobody wants to admit, you're recognizing your unhealed wound. Psychologist Carl Jung called this the shadow of the parts of ourselves we haven't integrated, and we are magnetically drawn to people who reflect our unresolved emotional material back to us. A woman who grew up feeling invisible will often find herself pursuing men who make her feel that same invisibility, not because she wants to suffer, but because her psyche is trying over and over to resolve what was left unresolved in childhood. This is called repetition compulsion. It's not a flaw, it's actually your psyche trying to heal. The problem is, healing doesn't happen by repeating the wound. It happens by recognizing it. The practical action here is one of the most powerful things you can do. Journal about the earliest time you remember feeling the exact same emotion you feel in your most painful relationships. Not the situation, the emotion. The longing, the rejection, the feeling of being too much or not enough. Where does that feeling actually come from? That answer will tell you more about your patterns than any quiz or dating coach ever could. And what I'm about to share next changed everything for the women who truly sat with it. This one might sting a little, so stay with me. Because it's not criticism, it's actually the most empowering idea in this entire video. If you consistently attract emotionally unavailable men, ask yourself honestly, how emotionally available are you? Not to the men you date, but to yourself. Do you know your own patterns? Can you sit with discomfort without numbing it? Can you hold your own pain without outsourcing it to a relationship? Emotionally available, securely attached people don't typically pair with chronically avoidant partners because the dynamic simply doesn't feel good to them. Secure people require a baseline of mutual care and consistency, And when they don't receive it, they move on. They don't wait, they don't chase, and they don't mistake unavailability for depth. Here's what studies on earned secure attachment show. You don't need to have had a perfect childhood to develop a secure attachment style. You can earn it through therapy, through deep self-reflection, through intentional relationships, and through practicing the exact kind of emotional availability for yourself that you want from a partner. The women who attract healthy love aren't different from you. They've just done the internal work that shifts what their nervous system considers home. And number 6. The one coming up is the one most women completely overlook. Most women have a list of green flags they want in a man: kindness, ambition, humor, emotional intelligence. But very few have sat down and honestly written out the patterns they keep repeating and what they reveal about their own unmet needs. If you're honest with yourself, there's a type you keep returning to. Maybe it's the emotionally brilliant man who can articulate feelings beautifully but never actually shows up consistently. Maybe it's the man who needs fixing, the project partner, where loving him gives you purpose. Maybe it's the man who is wildly impressive in public but emotionally absent in private. Each of these patterns points to a specific underlying need. The fixer needs to feel needed because love felt conditional growing up, like she had to earn it through service. The woman drawn to emotionally brilliant but inconsistent men may be someone who intellectualizes her own emotions, and their emotional articulateness feels like intimacy without vulnerability. The woman attracted to public success but private absence may have grown up with a parent who was present in function but absent in connection. The behavior on the outside is just the symptom. The pattern is the message. And once you read the message, you can stop waiting for a different man to fix what only you can resolve. What I'm about to say next might be the most important thing in this whole video. This is the step that separates the women who intellectually understand their patterns from the women who actually change them. Because knowing is not the same as doing. And doing it, when it comes to breaking deep emotional conditioning, feels genuinely uncomfortable at first. When a woman with an anxious attachment style meets a truly available, consistent man, the absence of anxiety can feel like absence of attraction. There's no spike, no chase, no cortisol hit that her nervous system interprets as "this matters." The secure man can feel flat, boring, like there's no spark. This is the crossroads, and the direction you choose here determines everything. The work is to stay, to give consistency a chance before you dismiss it as boring, to notice when you're running from safety and calling it running toward passion. This doesn't mean settling. It means learning to distinguish between genuine incompatibility and simple unfamiliarity with healthy love. It means tolerating the discomfort of something new long enough to let it become the new normal. Studies on attachment style change show that consistent exposure to a secure relationship style, whether with a partner or a therapist, gradually rewires the neural pathways associated with attachment. Your nervous system can learn new definitions of home, but only if you give it the chance. If you've watched this video and recognized yourself in more than one of these points, that's not something to be ashamed of. That's actually incredible self-awareness. Most people move through their entire lives never connecting the dots between childhood and the patterns they repeat in adulthood. The fact that you're here, that you're asking these questions, means you are already doing something most people never do. The truth about attachment is this: none of your patterns are character flaws. They are survival strategies that made perfect sense at the time they formed. The anxious child who learned to monitor a parent's mood to predict safety became the woman who hypervigilantly reads every text message. The girl who learned that love comes and goes became the woman who grips too hard or lets go too fast. You adapted beautifully. You survived. But you're not adapting to that environment anymore. You're an adult now, and you get to choose. You get to learn what secure love feels like from the inside, not just read about it. You get to stop confusing the familiar with the good and start building relationships that actually nourish you. That is not a small thing. That is everything. And you are more capable of it than you know. I want to ask you something before you close this video. Which of these patterns did you recognize most in yourself? Was it the anxious-avoidant trap? The dopamine cycle? The repetition compulsion? Or something else entirely? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and your answer might help someone else feel less alone. If this resonated with you, subscribe to Lena. I post every week, and I genuinely love to have you here. This is a space for real conversations, not surface-level advice. And if you want to go even deeper on what we talked about today, especially the part about rewiring your attachment style in real time, watch the video coming up next. It connects directly to everything we just covered, and it might be the most practical thing I've made yet. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.